Alright, so this is my Commarts presentation. For the first project we had in class was to create a conceptual self-portrait. This was an abstract drawing of yourself, without really showing yourself. And I decided to try and draw a picture of myself as I relate to my online identity. And I drew a bunch of thumbnails of this, trying to capture who I am, specifically online, and I ultimately settled on this one. I learned different pixel art and tried to reference different pictures of TV screens and look at a professional artist's work with pixel art. And ultimately, I put it all together and I laid out sketches and flats and different lighting effects. And this was the final product of my first project. After that, we began to focus more on our main project. I knew from the start I wanted to do something with character design, so when we were asked to research a professional artist, I researched Carlos Grangel for the purposes of looking at his professional work he's done for the animation business. Now, my expertise in general lies with character design and strong use of color, and I've always had more of a style that leans towards the cutesy and without line and with very colorful. So I figured the best thing I could do is try and create a children's book if I wanted to create a story. So after that, it became a matter of building up a concept and a character. So here I laid out potential themes, what I wanted to have be told in the story, and some concepts. Here are some early designs for the main character, and some early concept art, some potential scenes and styles, and some different ways to draw the main character. Ultimately, I settled with more humanoid design. I referenced real live moths to get a feel for color schemes, and I experimented with different ones, and in the end I ended up choosing something that was similar to this one, mostly. I did shift the design many times afterwards, though. I also looked into how people create professional authors created their own storybooks. I looked into the work of Marcus Pfizer, who wrote The Rainbow Fish and Hopper. Very beautiful work. Here's some expression work, seeing how I can use the more foreign elements of design to create better expression and pose. And then we get to the hard part. I had a name in mind, which was The Moth Who Stole the Sun. I wanted to write a story about a moth who steals the light from a lamppost. They're afraid of the dark, and they just wanted to collect all the light. So I laid out all of these ideas, but I could never settle on how I wanted it to end or what I wanted to actually be the theme of the story. And ultimately, I just tried to push on and work on pages. So here's some more references for organic design and some attempts for me to outline how I want the pages to turn out and the order in which I want them to be made. Here was a sketch of a stump where I intended for the little moth to live. That's a little hollow there. Got a little house in there. There's more of that later. And some more designs here. Yeah, I made a secondary character to be the sort of sidekick / a rival to this little moth, a little buddy to go along with him. But I shifted up the design a bit to try and break it up, but I kept encountering a problem of I don't know where I want the story to go. And I just kept making pages and editing them to try and make them have a greater sense of color and depth, but I didn't know how I wanted the story to end, and I just kept getting more and more frustrated with it. Here's a introduction to the lamppost. I tried to make it more abstract. I wasn't satisfied with the colors for this one, as I felt like it looked a bit odd, and the lamp didn't seem to be as imposing as I wanted it to, so I edited it around a bit. in some different versions. And ultimately I managed to make pages that I liked, but I became increasingly convinced that this was not the story I wanted to tell, and I didn't have a story I wanted to tell with this. And even if I could, I didn't have enough time to create the story I needed. And there's a lesson to be learned from that, I think, which is maybe when you go into a story, to know what it is you're trying to tell, and to maybe trust your gut a little more, where not, instead of denying that what you're working on isn't something that you're enjoying or you're passionate about. That's I learned a lot about how to design and how to build a storybook through this project. I think that is one of the biggest lessons I have learned from this experience overall. And I'm glad I've taken it, and I'm excited to try again, I suppose.